First story, WIBTAH. If I told my kids, M16, F18, their recently deceased mother cheated on me, the wound's still a bit fresh. A month ago, my wife of 22 years tragically died in a car crash. Cynthia was one of those drivers that loved to stare into her phone, and unfortunately, this bad habit caught up with her in the last week of January. I was pretty devastated when the police showed up at my door and told me she had a fatal accident, and I wanted to honor her somehow. At the time of the accident, I had no idea she was having an affair. The last 4 or 5 months, I did notice she was pulling away and our intimacy decreased, but I thought this was just something that happened to couples after 20 years, so I didn't pay much mind to it. But at least from what she told me, Cynthia started to get into writing. She was constantly on her laptop, typing away at all hours. She told me she was working on a fantasy book, hopefully the first of a series. When I asked more, she said it was about a fantasy world where a super advanced human race appears and interacts with orcs and elves, and magic with laser guns and high tech. It sounded very cool, and Cynthia promised as soon as she had a first draft she liked, she would let me read it. I decided to honor her by getting the draft of her book and hiring a writer to clean it up and publish it with a novelty press. I got on her laptop and no book, no sign at all. I opened her Chrome, thinking she might have written it in Google Drive, and saw a bunch of pinned tabs. One was a Facebook Messenger tab with a ton of her messages with a man, John. I have no idea who John is, never met him, but they talked about meeting up, exchanged photos, everything. The last message John sent her was 2 days before Cynthia's accident, the two saying they loved each other, and him saying he was going on a business trip to Germany. The messages between Cynthia and John has shown they had met up at the house more than once, so I already had the locks changed. Not sure if John is back yet, and frankly don't care if he is. I was thoroughly devastated. She did have a Google Drive tab, but in her drive wasn't a book about elves versus Vulcans, but a shared document with John. The document was a plan her and John drafted on how to divorce me, turn the kids against me, and take our home and as much money as possible. One thing she noted was she has been taking money, a few hundred a month, and putting it in a separate account. I got the bank thing sorted out, and the money in the kids' college account. I've also been going to therapy twice a week now. It is hard to be mad at someone dead, especially someone everyone else in your life is grieving and praising as a wonderful wife and mother. I have asked my therapist if I should tell my kids about what Cynthia has done and what she was planning to do. My therapist cautioned me about this. He said that they just lost their mother, and being told this would be condemning her memory. Damnatio memoriae. Maybe now is not the time, but I think eventually would be a time for my kids to know. Comments. Commenter. Now is definitely not the time to burden them with that. Commenter. I agree. As someone who lost a parent when I was growing up, I could not handle information like that at the time. I know every kid is different, so you know yours the best. But personally, I think it'd be easier to wait until they are independent adults, not just legal adults. BC, I did not consider myself to be functioning as an adult at 18, and can process everything without it taking a toll on their mental health during a time I grieve. Commenter. My kids were grown and still had daddy on a pedestal. I told them eventually that he might have been a good dad, but he wasn't a good husband. They got it. They were 4 and 5 when he died and 20-something when I said that. They quit comparing their stepdad so harshly. Update, 5 days later. Some things have happened since last time. To answer some questions, I have gone to the bank and got control of Cynthia's account and transferred the money into a savings account for the kids. Also, my kids already suspected. Tuesday night, my eldest Michelle said her and my son Jason had something to say to me. They sat me down in the living room and Michelle said, "We think Mom was cheating on you." They both said they weren't sure, but it was eating them up seeing me in extreme grief the past month, and they thought I should hear what they suspect. They brought up how Cynthia was always away, and when she was at home, she would say strange observations about me. Stuff like, "Isn't it weird your dad's working late this week?" This is one of those seeds Cynthia mentioned in her document that she wanted to plant in the kids. Michelle said her suspicions went high the week before the accident, when she got home from school and saw a strange jacket on the coat hook by the front door. It wasn't any jacket Jason or I had, so she was very suspicious about it. I told both my kids that I didn't tell them, but I found evidence on their mom's computer when I was looking for the book she said she was writing. Michelle wanted to see the evidence, but Jason said he doesn't want to think or talk about Mom for a while. I shared the info with Michelle after she insisted she already suspected her mom and was ready for it. It feels good to now have someone close that can talk to me about this beyond my therapist. Yesterday afternoon, I was home alone when I heard someone jiggling the back door's knob. I went to the door and saw a man I never saw before trying to use a key on the lock. I told him to step back from the door and he almost jumped. I opened the door a crack and asked him who he was and what he was doing in my backyard. It was John, Cynthia's affair partner. He told me that he worked with my wife and he just got back from a trip and saw Cynthia died on social media, and him and Cynthia were starting a business. They had a business bank account with his investment money in the business, and he was wondering if I could help him get the business funds transferred over. I looked him straight in the eye and said I was at the bank and Cynthia didn't have an extra business account and I had no idea what he was talking about. John also said that he wanted to check my wife's things for any sensitive business documents. I said he was a stranger and wasn't welcome in my home, especially since he tried to enter without permission. John looked defeated, but did suggest he would consult with a lawyer about his sensitive business documents and business funds. Comments. Commenter. John had a key to your home. Commenter. And he knew Cynthia was dead and still tried to enter like he had rights to it. OP needs to consult their own lawyer and get the locks changed. Commenter. He wanted the money and to get rid of all proof of where the money came from. OP needs to secure all those things he found in case this guy will try to go to court with his story. Commenter. Honestly, you might want to start calling lawyers and get a consultation with both family law and civil litigation attorneys on the off chance John actually pursues something further. I would also start taking the time to go through everything of hers along with changing the passwords to all her online accounts. And when changing the passwords, don't forget to change the security questions as well as any phone numbers and emails attached to the accounts. New update. Had to clean up some situations. Just remembered this existed, so I'd pop into update. 1. Some people were upset with my comment about my wife's bad texting habit catching up with her. Have to admit, emotions are, and probably still will be high for quite a while regarding her. It was pretty callous to say, I admit. 2. The locks were changed long before John showed up, when I saw based on their conversations that he was at the house several times. Also, the back door is in the same room as the home office, so of course I could hear someone trying to open it. 3. I've had a credit check done on Cynthia and checked with all local banks. I got the only account she had. Been going through our financials for the last year and there were several withdrawals by her, a few hundred here or there a month, which it appears were deposited into the getaway account. The getaway account did have an extra approximate $2,000 in it versus what she took out. Could be John's money? Can't be sure. 4. Cynthia hasn't worked in 2 years. We reached a level of financial stability to where Cynthia wanted to retire early and focus on being a fantasy writer. No idea where she met John, and honestly it's beyond the point of caring right now. 5. Didn't recognize John from the photos because most of the shots were not facially focused, sorry to say. 6. I did take some advice and hired a PI to investigate John. He is a 40-year-old married carpenter, father of 3. Lots of people suggested I destroy his marriage or sue him, but honestly this whole ordeal has me exhausted. I am just happy to have Michelle and Jason with me. 7. Still going to counseling every week and the days are getting better now for the update. In Cynthia and John's master plan, one of their ideas to alienate my children from me was to create a narrative of me cheating. They put screenshots of various escorts from some sort of website in the document, saying they could easily pay one to claim I was sleeping with her. Cynthia picked a rather large woman who looked like she had some rough years and seemed gleeful in the idea of making the children think I slept with that woman over her. Surprise, Sunday night. Who was knocking at the door but that woman? She immediately tried to cause a scene and tried to make the adulterous claims, but I simply said, "Did John last name send you?" And she immediately left without a word. John called me later that night and said he wanted his investment money and he knew how to hurt me. I told him we were on a recorded line, a bluff, and he was silent before saying wrong number and hanging up. Might need to start looking at an RO now. Comments. Commenter. You should just call him out. Why let him continue this charade? It's disrupting your peace. Just tell him I saw the file, I know everything. That's how I knew you sent the escort. Although what purpose it serves now, besides pissing me off enough I tell your wife about the affair, I don't know. I have the evidence saved. My kids know their mother was cheating. If you keep pursing this, I will take you to court, press charges, and sue you for harassment, threatening bodily harm and alienation of affection. Don't try me again. Commenter. He hired an escort to cause a scene to get back 2K? Commenter. I wonder if there is a stash of cash hiding in the house. Second story. My F30 BF M40 refused to sign his divorce papers because his ex showed up with a baby bump. My BF and I have been together for a bit over a year now. He was married before and they broke up because my BF wanted children. This was a couple of years ago. Now they have been separated for 2 years and can start the divorce. When I met him, he was honest with me about him wanting children, a dream I shared with him. He hadn't seen or talked to his ex since the separation. We were supposed to get engaged once the divorce is finalized, but they both need to sign the papers or it could drag. I was worried that she wouldn't sign because from what I heard from my BF's family, she was crazy about him and didn't want a divorce. Little did I know that it would come from him. I went with him to her lawyer's office where they would make it final. I wanted to support him. She wasn't what I expected. She wasn't devastated like my BF's family expected. She looked serene, beautiful, lovely, and totally over my BF. She had her hand on her very pregnant belly. She was pleasant to me, and she basically knew who I was. She cared so little to even act like she didn't know anything about her soon-to-be exes and his new girlfriend. She admitted that she knew through mutual friends and that she kept following his news. She was happy that he looked happy. My BF was shocked. She asked how he was. Instead of answering her, he started yelling at her and shaking with anger, anguish. He refused to sign the papers and told her he would make her life miserable. She was very distraught, but he told her to stop acting confused. She knew what she did. He left. He even forgot that I was there. He just left. I half apologized, but she said that I didn't need to. She apologized instead. Then her lawyer asked if he could drive her home because he didn't want her driving while shaking. He asked me I too needed a ride. I said that I could take an Uber, but he insisted. The drive was awkward. I found out that her partner was away on business and they have been together for almost 2 years. When I got home, I was exhausted. My BF didn't call or text or anything. I called his mom and she said to give him time because he loved me and to be patient because he just needed time. But what time? This was Thursday. Today he came with breakfast and said that he needed time. I asked if he was signing the papers and he said no. Then that he didn't want to talk about it but to trust him that he needed time. In other words, he doesn't want to discuss what happened with me. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.